Disclaimer: this video is produced for educational and documentary purposes by Philippine Wealth Chronicles. It is based on historical research and available public records. The content aims to shed light on a lesser-known facet of Philippine economic and social history. The businesses and families discussed are placed in their historical context. This is not an investigation into current wealth or corporate status. Views expressed are interpretations of historical facts. While accuracy is strived for, the complex nature of history means some perspectives may differ. Subscribe to Philippine Wealth Chronicles for more deep dives into the untold stories of wealth, legacy, and history in the Philippines. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration. Have you ever looked at a map of the world and wondered about the hidden stories? The ones not written in big, bold letters, but whispered in the footsteps of people who traveled oceans? What if I told you that one of the most powerful business stories in my country, the Philippines, starts with a question that seems to have a missing piece? A question like, who are the Jewish Filipino families who own the biggest empires? Here's the strange truth that got me hooked. That family, in the way we imagine a giant single dynasty, doesn't exactly exist. It's a ghost in the stories of our biggest companies. But chasing this ghost leads us to a real story that's so much better. It's not a story of one family ruling everything. It's a story of a few small families, arriving with almost nothing, who changed the face of Filipino business forever. And then, almost vanished from memory. So let's go on a hunt. Not for a giant, but for footprints. Our story doesn't start with skyscrapers, but with ships. Over 100 years ago, in the 1870s, the Philippines was under Spanish rule. To a place far, far away across the world came three brothers from Alsace-Lorraine. Their last name was Levy. They were Jewish, and they saw opportunity. They set up a small shop in Manila. They sold things from Europe. It was humble. It was the very first footprint. Then came the Americans. After Spain left, America came in. And with the Americans, more Jewish families arrived. One man, Emil Bachrach, stepped off the boat in 1901. He didn't come to take over. He came to build. And what did he build? He saw the future on wheels. He brought the very first car to the Philippines. A Thomas Flyer, can you imagine the sight? A horseless carriage on the dirt roads of old Manila. He started Bachrach Motors, but he didn't just sell cars. He sold the dream of the modern world. He brought in the first taxis, the first buses. He literally put the country on wheels. The Bachrach name became like the word for car. If you had a Bachrach, you had arrived. His family grew their business into insurance, into money. For a time, the Bachrachs were one of the wealthiest families in the entire islands. They were not alone. There were others. The Hers, the Levis, the Khan family. They built the first big department store in Manila, called Estrella del Norte. They were pioneers in retail, in trade. They helped make Manila a modern city. So here we have these families, the Levis from the beginning, the Bachrachs building an empire of automobiles. They were Jewish, they were Filipino, they were hugely successful. This is the part of the story where you think, aha, so they did build the largest empire. But history has twists. World War II came. The Japanese occupation of the Philippines was brutal for everyone, but especially dangerous for Jewish families. Some had to flee, some had to hide. The beautiful synagogues they built were damaged. After the war, the world changed. The Philippines became independent. New kinds of business giants began to rise. Families with huge, sprawling conglomerates and shopping malls, property and beer, and the Jewish Filipino families. Their story took a different path. Some moved away. Some stayed, but their businesses, while still respected, were no longer the towering giants. The Bachrach Motors brand eventually faded. The big empires today have names like Sai, Ayala, and Gokongwei. So the answer to the first question is no. There is no single Jewish Filipino family with the largest empire. But that's the boring answer. The real answer is the story we just found. Because their legacy isn't a falling empire. It's a foundation. They were the first. They showed what was possible. They introduced the car, the modern store, new ways of finance. They were the builders of firsts. They integrated into Filipino society, married into other families, and their story became woven into the larger Filipino story. Their footprint is in the concrete of our progress. The Jewish community in the Philippines today is very, very small. Maybe just a few hundred people, but it is one of the only places in all of Asia where you can find a history without deep-seated anti-Semitism. During the Holocaust, when the world was shutting its doors, the Philippines opened its heart. President Manuel Quezon welcomed over 1,300 Jewish refugees escaping the Nazis. They found a safe home here. That is a point of incredible pride. So the viral hook was a question about a giant business family. But the real story is about quiet pioneers. It's about a community that contributed deep roots instead of just building high towers. It's a story not of taking over but of adding to. of building the first roads, both real and economic, for others to drive on. In the end, looking for the largest empire made us find something more valuable. We found the original builders. We found courage in a new land. We found a safe haven in a dark time. And we found that sometimes, the most powerful legacy isn't about how big you grow, but how deeply you plant the seeds of change. The ghost we were chasing wasn't a failure of history. It was a reminder to look closer at the map, to listen for the whispers of those first footsteps, because they might just tell you how everything began. Music from the main video fades back in softly, and that's how a search for a single giant leads you to discover the true pioneers, the ones who laid the first stones. If you found this hidden piece of our history fascinating, then you might just be in the right place. Here on Philippine Wealth Chronicles, we don't just look at the biggest fortunes today. We peel back the layers of time to find the original dreamers, the unlikely builders, and the forgotten turns that shape the landscape of wealth around us. There are so many more stories like this one, waiting in the old photographs, ledgers, and street names of our past. Stories of how influence is built, lost, and remembered. So, if you're curious to uncover more stories with us, I'll be here, digging up the next chapter. For now, thank you for watching. Take care and stay curious.